Let me tell you right now, if you ever wake up and decide to turn your backyard into a minefield of haunted house traps just to get back at your neighbor, well, honestly, you're probably already having a week like mine. I know it sounds unhinged, but you haven't met Karen or her demon dogs. Trust me, by the time she screamed at 6 in the morning so loud the neighbors thought somebody was being murdered, I was already too far gone to care. I'd sunk about 3 grand into that garden. Plants, irrigation, raised beds, gone shredded, dug up ruin thanks to 2 dogs and one neighbor who thought property lines were more of a gentle suggestion than, the law. But the best part, she'd stand there coffee in hand in her robe watching the show like my misery was some free neighborhood entertainment. Look, I'm not new to neighbors. I've lived next to loud drummers, barbecue kings, one couple who ran a lawnmower repair business out of their garage, but this was next level. When I first moved in 8 months ago, I picked this house for the corner lot and the patch of woods behind it. I wanted quiet privacy, a little space to finally build the garden I'd dreamed about back in my tiny apartment days. Raised beds, greenhouse heirloom tomatoes, the whole deal. The kind of thing you picture yourself doing when you're stuck in a shoebox and can't keep a single cactus alive. And for a while, it was everything I hoped. I'd walk out every morning, coffee in hand, feeling like maybe finally I was making it. Then Karen moved in. Not a real name, but if you've ever met a Karen, you'll get it. Mid-50s, let me speak to your manager, haircut, yoga pants with price tags that screamed, "I don't sweat, I sue." And 2 German shepherds built like linebackers. Gorgeous animals, total maniacs. No leash, no fence discipline, no respect for the border between my dreams and her playground. First time it happened, I was making eggs and I heard a sound that was, how do I put this, apocalyptic. I run outside and those 2 dogs had dug under the fence and they were going through my tomatoes like it was the world's most expensive salad bar. I yelled, they stared at me, then bolted back as if I was the one trespassing. I went over, tried to be neighborly, showed her the damage, the photos, her response. She laughed. I kid you not. Actually laughed and told me maybe I should build a better fence. No apology, no offer to help. Just that little dogs will be dogs. Chuckle. I felt like I'd just told her a knock-knock joke. I patched the fence, dug chicken wire a foot deep, replanted what I could, tried to move on. Next morning, same time, same crash, different section of the fence. This time they took out my irrigation system, destroyed my herb spiral, and just for the fun of it ripped apart a Japanese maple I'd saved up for. $200 down the drain. The thing looked like it had been fed through a wood chipper. This time I wasn't so polite. Pajamas, bedhead knocking on her door, ready for war. She met me in a bathrobe, mug in hand, and before I could even start, she cut me off. If you're here to complain about my dogs, build a better fence. No shame. No hint of guilt. I showed her the evidence, her dogs in the act, the damage, the bills. She just took a sip, smiled, and told me her husband was on the HOA board, and good luck proving it. Maybe it's just pests, she said, as if raccoons had learned to operate shovels and target my most expensive plants. That's when I knew this was no regular neighbor spat. I was up against someone who genuinely believed she was untouchable, who got some twisted kick out of watching me suffer. I filed the HOA complaint anyway. Documented everything. 2 weeks later, I get a generic response, unable to determine fault, please resolve neighborly. I called to ask what the hell was going on. Turns out Karen's husband had reviewed the complaint. Yeah, he judged his own wife's case. When I pointed out how crazy that was, the secretary just said, "That's how we handle things here," and hung up. So now I'm out thousands, my garden is a disaster. And my only recourse is a legal process that's not just rigged, it's basically run by Karen Incorporated. But wait, it gets better. She decides my complaints have offended her, so every morning at 6, she lets the dogs out, stands there with her coffee and watches. When I come out, she waves and yells, "Sorry, they're just so energetic," dripping with sarcasm. She'd take her sweet time calling them back, never in a rush, while they did as much damage as possible. I tried everything, reinforced the fence, called animal control. They gave her a warning she ignored, filed more complaints straight into the void. Nothing changed. My dream was becoming a wasteland, and the more she saw it got to me, the more she enjoyed it. This wasn't about the dogs anymore. This was her way of telling me, you can't win. But you know what she didn't know about me? Before the garden, before the suburban pipe dream, I'd spent 15 years designing special effects for haunted houses. That's right. Jump scares, animatronics, fog machines, the whole make you scream but not actually hurt you package. I still had a storage unit packed with props and gadgets from those days. I never thought I'd use them for anything but Halloween. But that morning I stood in my ruined pumpkin patch watching Karen recording me and laughing on speakerphone with her friend. Something snapped. If the legal system wouldn't help, I'd have to get creative. Not to hurt her, just to make sure the consequences were unforgettable. I drew up blueprints, plotted motion sensors, triggers, mapped the dog's path, the whole 9 yards. If the HOA was corrupt and Karen was untouchable, then it was time for a little psychological warfare. First, I rigged a pressure plate right where the dogs dug in. Step on it and a pneumatic scarecrow shoots up 6 feet, green LED eyes blazing. I tested it 3 times at midnight, scared myself every time, even though I knew it was coming. Next, another pressure plate along their favorite path, triggering an old asylum sound effect I'd made years ago, nails on a chalkboard screaming a bass rumble that shakes your spine. Not enough to damage hearing, but enough to make your soul want to leave your body. Third, a fog machine hidden in a fake rock loaded with the nastiest rotten egg-smelling juice ever created. Triggered by motion, it would pump out a cloud of stinking, low-lying fog. And the grand finale, a motion-activated demon dog head with glowing eyes, snarling mechanical jaws, lunging out of the ground on a pneumatic arm. I set everything up, checked each trigger, camouflaged every piece. Even put up hidden cameras, because honestly at this point, I wanted to see the look on her face. Thursday morning, 6 a.m. I'm at my kitchen table, coffee ready, laptop open, camera feeds rolling. There she is, right on schedule. She lets the dogs out. They head for my fence. First one hits the plate. Boom! Scarecrow launches up. Both dogs yelp, slide backward, claws scrabbling. Karen, still on her porch, looks over, confused. The dogs, being dogs, come back a little more cautious. Second plate speaker erupts with that screeching, gut-churning noise. Dogs bark panic, try to run, but trigger the fog machine. Cloud of stink rolls out, and even through the glass I can hear them gagging. Now Karen's off her porch calling for them, probably thinking they're hurt. She gets closer steps through the gap in the fence and she triggers the demon dog. That thing lunges, eyes glowing, jaws, snapping, deep snarl booming out. Karen's face goes from annoyed to terrified in half a second. Coffee mug goes flying. She screams a real horror movie scream, top of her lungs. She falls back, lands in the wet grass and fog, scrambling to get up. Her dogs have already bolted. For 30 seconds it's chaos, fog everywhere, speaker wailing, scarecrow looming, and Karen crawling out covered in dirt, hair wild, probably rethinking every bad decision she's ever made. She finally makes it back to her house, running faster than I'd ever seen her move. I'm watching on my laptop, laughing so hard I can barely breathe. It felt good. After months of being powerless, finally she knew how it felt. 10 minutes later, she's at my front door, banging like she's trying to break it down. She's furious, covered in grass stains, and starts screaming about how I tried to kill her dogs, how she's calling the cops, how I'm going to jail. I let her rant, then, as calmly as I could, told her maybe her dog set off a wildlife deterrent legal since her dogs keep trespassing. Or maybe she was trespassing and got scared by something on my property. You might want to keep your dogs in your own yard, I said. The look she gave me. She realized right then she wasn't the only one who could play games. She turned and stormed off. I figured maybe this was it. Maybe she'd finally leave me alone. Boy, was I wrong. The next morning I check my security cameras, just routine. But I see something at almost midnight. Karen in dark clothes, no dogs in my yard, with a flashlight, carefully pulling up plants, tearing them, taking pictures. I switch to another camera, same thing, different angle. And then it hits me. She's been doing the damage herself. The dogs were just cover. Every major incident happened within days of me improving the property. She'd come over at night, destroy what she wanted, then let the dogs finish the job. She was methodical, calm, smiling as she worked. I checked weeks of old footage, same pattern. Sometimes she brought the dog, sometimes just herself, sometimes tools, always right after I made the place look a little nicer. Why? Turns out her husband had tried to push through a rule about corner lots being held to higher standards, voted down, but clearly he'd taken it personally. So Karen and her husband, They made it their mission to run off corner lot owners, make them miserable, force them to sell cheap, then buy up the property themselves. It had happened to the last owner, and the one before that too. Armed with all this, I went to the HOA office, demanded to file a complaint not with Karen's husband. They said, sorry, conflict complaints are handled by the board member in question unless 3 others support a recusal. Which never happens. You're not the first, the secretary said quietly before clamming up. I tracked down the last owner, Martin. He'd gone through 5 years of this, ended up selling at a loss. Cameras. They made him take them down for privacy. Once they were gone, the harassment got worse. Someone else told me about a mysterious fire before she bought the house. Nobody could prove anything, but the pattern was clear. They made life hell, then bought cheap. 3 days after the trap, 2 cops showed up, warrant in hand. Karen had filed a complaint, illegal surveillance, dangerous traps, harm to her dogs. I let them in, explained everything, showed them the footage. When the officer saw Karen destroying my property, his attitude changed. Has anything happened that might have triggered this complaint? He asked, almost smirking. I showed him the footage of Karen's little adventure with the demon dog. The other officer checking my traps shrugged and said they were just Halloween props, nothing harmful. But the cop told me Karen had filed for a restraining order, accused me of harassment. And I knew right then she was weaponizing the system just like the HOA. I was going to need help. That afternoon, Karen called me directly, calm, measured, like she was reading from a script. You have no idea who you're dealing with. My husband has connections. If you think your security footage is going to help you, you're wrong. We've done this before. You're going to sell your house to us for what we offer, or you'll lose it in court fees and fines. She had no idea I'd been recording every call. I let her talk, get it all out. By the time she hung up, I knew she'd given me everything I needed. After that, I reached out to every previous owner I could find. The stories all lined up: complaints, property damage, threats, forced sales. One woman told me about the fire, about insurance refusing to pay, about having to sell, to guess who, a company tied to Karen's husband's business partner. The pattern was undeniable. Harassment, vandalism, buy low profit. I called my old buddy Jake, now a private investigator. He came by, went through every bit of evidence with me, built a timeline, connected the dots. This isn't just neighbor harassment, he said. This is criminal conspiracy, maybe even arson. We set a plan. I'd play defeated, put my house up as a coming soon sale, let Karen think she'd won. Meanwhile, Jake and a lawyer built the case. The day of the hearing, I walked in, watched Karen and her husband perform their little play about how I'd traumatized her and her dogs. Their lawyer submitted photos, medical bills, the works. Then it was my turn. My lawyer queued up the video night after night of Karen in my yard, hands full of my plants, smile on her face. Footage of the traps showing they were harmless, only meant to scare. The phone call where Karen explained her plan. Testimony from previous owners. Documents linking her husband's company to the cheap sales. Evidence about the fire. The judge asked Karen to explain herself. Her lawyer tried to block questions. My client invokes the fifth. The judge denied the restraining order on the spot and referred everything to the DA. Turned to her husband, said the HOA would be investigated for conflict of interest. Karen actually cried real tears. Their lawyer tried to grab her arm and drag her out. My lawyer handed over a lawsuit: property damage, fraud, conspiracy, fair housing violations. Karen looked like she'd seen a ghost. Her husband turned white as a sheet. As we left, my lawyer said, "This is just round 1. They'll fight, but now you've got the leverage." And you know what? It's not over. People like that don't just roll over, they escalate. But for the first time, the tables have turned. I fought back. I exposed them. And if it helps the next person after me, maybe it's all worth it. Now let me ask you, where's the line between defending yourself and going too far? If someone keeps pushing, hurting, taking, when do you say enough and push back no matter the cost? I want to know what you think. Have you ever had a neighbor cross the line? What did you do? Drop your story below, and let's talk about where justice ends and payback begins.